The Batman and Circuit Girl.
Over the last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of busted stuff. Excuse me, I went to Gaddy's for dinner. My optical mouse broke, and I had to drag it back to the soldering iron room and try to figure out what was wrong with it. My computer battery had broken, my dad's oscilloscope broke. But I had all these broken things around. I've been doing a lot of poking around to try to see where are the limits of what can I fix without really kind of knowing that much about it, but just by being intuitive. And so far everything's coming together pretty well. I might be doing dangerous things, so don't necessarily do these things at home. This is just a little motion computing tablet computer, and I had to run it off of AC all the time because it just refused to charge the battery. The way I have been running it is I've just been running a little DC input to this thing. And I know that if I ran 14 volts of DC into this hole, the computer would work. So if I just had a 14 volt battery hooked up to the right places on that, I would think it would work. And even if I couldn't find the right places on that, I could just run two wires into this. So that was my fallback, was to find something that would spit out 14 volts and just hook it up to the hole. I asked the scientists for help, and they gave very good advice, which is find another one of these on eBay that doesn't do anything but charge batteries. So that's a really good approach. But I wanted to get dirty. This is what it feels like. You take apart something that already worked, but you have to just kind of not care too much, and you have to find the seams in it and pry it apart. There's a rule of thumb that if something has more than 2 screws, or maybe it's 4 screws, that it's not meant to come apart. And I guess if it has no screws, it's really not meant to come apart. But they're really not that daunting. Battery packs just look like packs with batteries in them. So once you get that apart, you can see it's all battery-y. But what really was curious to me is why all that circuitry? And what I figure is that they've got taps going in. There's wires not just connected to that end and that end. There are wires going to the spots between the batteries. So that means that they're getting different voltages out of there. And they're doing some computations to decide when to send how much voltage to which part of the circuit in here. And that probably helps a lot for battery life. But why wouldn't this charge? And all I could think was that they've got some kind of acute circuit in here that maybe wants to make sure that there really is a battery hookup to this before they send a bunch of juice to it. Because if they send a bunch of juice to it and you're touching it with your finger or your tongue, they get sued. So I just used that as my hypothesis, and I really don't know that it's right. I measured it, and it came out really, really dead. It looked like it was about 6 volts or something. So I figured I had to charge it up so that it would look like a real battery in order for this thing to recognize it. So I asked around, and my buddy Kevin has one of these little battery trickle chargers for a car. And I thought, well, a car is big and a laptop is small and it'll blow it up. I looked at it and the number seemed small and it's just got a trickle charge, and I figured I could, if I started smelling something nasty, I could run out of the room. I got a fire extinguisher ready, and I just hooked this up to where it seemed like it ought to go, the front and the back of the battery. I used alligator clips, and I left a voltmeter on there just to see what would happen, so that you know, if things started hitting the pegs, then I could run and scream and call the cops. And I charged it up, dropped it back in the computer. It came up, I don't know why, it came up with very low voltage, and it was enough voltage that the computer could see it and it was able to charge it up. And it fixed it, and I'm very proud of myself. So, and not with any good reason, because I really don't know why it worked, but I guess in the spirit of promoting exploration, that's how I approach this problem, and that's how I successfully let nature solve it. Back to you, Jerry.
And you didn't smell any smoke? I'm so disappointed, George.
No, I didn't. And I'm a little disappointed myself. Oh, but Jerry, here's the other battery that goes on the back of it, the auxiliary battery. And yeah, I did hook that one up and tried to do the same thing with it. And now, when I plug this into the computer works fine until it has to think about this battery. So if you like tell the software, hey, how much electricity is on that battery? It goes, and the whole thing just dies. So
Oh, no.
I have no idea why. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this one apart. I'm going to find the analogous circuits in this as to that, because I've got a working one and a not working one. And I'm going to poke around and see if there's anything that's the same or different. I'm going to play the Sesame Street game with my batteries.
The chat room had all kinds of great, useful information. You'll have to scroll back after the show and check that out.
I will. But remember,
I think they're going to redesign your entire battery pack.
I would love it. But remember, guys, my enthusiasm today is not about finding out facts. It's about figuring things out from ground zero.